It can be difficult to get a good night's sleep at the best of times, but during this pandemic, when you are hearing frightening information and your normal routines are disrupted, sleep can be seriously affected. And when we aren't sleeping well, everything else suffers. Sleep problems affect our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviour, our health, and of course, how we feel physically. My name is Martin Alderton from Clarity, Stress and Trauma. This is one of a series of short videos to help you understand and manage psychological reactions to the COVID-19 pandemic, because it has dramatically changed our lives and will continue to for, well, we don't know how long. Previous videos recommended some tools for your toolkit of things you can do to help manage your reactions during this pandemic. The first recommended the benefits of laughter, the second described a simple form of relaxation, and the third provided some simple guidance on talking about the pandemic with younger children. In this video, I'm going to explain how you can reduce sleep disturbance that could be caused by loads of things: pain, noise, heat or cold, uncomfortable beds and so on. But the type of sleep disturbance I'm going to be talking about mostly is when troubling thoughts create reactions, and disturbed sleep is one of those reactions. When something threatening is happening in our lives, we naturally think about it a lot. Our mind is drawn towards negative thoughts about the thing that is threatening us, such as the pandemic. What do we call this? We call it worrying, don't we? Worrying is a type of thinking that is a perfectly normal and natural survival instinct, but it creates troublesome reactions, such as being more alert because of the adrenaline and other chemicals released in our bodies when we worry. Like I said, thoughts create reactions. During the day, you might be able to distract yourself from worrying all the time, but when you go to bed, you might not be calm and relaxed. And even worse, once it's quiet and dark and you've put your head on the pillow, your mind is very likely to head straight for those worrying thoughts that stop you falling asleep. We're going to think about two issues. First, good sleep hygiene. Basically, what to do and not do when preparing for bedtime. Then, what to do and not do when you get into bed and want to go to sleep. I'll also say something about what to do when you wake in the night. Okay, then, sleep hygiene. Firstly, there is stuff to say that is very basic but important, so I'm just going to mention it briefly before we go on to talk about dealing with the effects of troubling thoughts. Tablets can be helpful, but carefully follow your doctor's advice to avoid dependency forming. Try to keep to a roughly similar bedtime if you can. Establishing a routine will help restore your sleep habit. Your bed needs to be comfortable. Your bedroom should not be too warm. Cooler is better, but not too cold, of course. Generally, the darker the better. People can get used to quite a lot of background noise, but quiet is best. Oh dear. If you're having persistent sleep problems, then noise or movement from your sleeping partner could become a major problem for you, needing some sort of resolution. If your sleep is poor, then the disruption caused by babies and children of all ages is obviously just another problem that will need managing. This is crucial. Most people's preparation for bedtime isn't ideal at the best of times, but if you aren't having problems getting to sleep, it doesn't really matter. But when we are having problems sleeping and need our preparation for bedtime to be helpful, we tend to get worse, not better. A good preparation for going to bed and falling asleep is all about avoiding stimulation. Now, what do I mean by stimulation? Well, you may not have even realised that some of the things I'm going to mention are forms of stimulation, which could make it more difficult for you to get to sleep. What you should try to do is allow your mind and your body to wind down and become calmer and more relaxed in the hour or two before you go to bed. You're trying to wind down towards the moment that your head goes on the pillow and the light goes off. If some of the things I'm going to suggest are relevant to you, that's good news, because it means that there's something within your control that you could change and which would help. You need to be tired. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have run a marathon, but if you've sat around in lockdown all day, it's not going to be easy to keep a good sleeping habit. But don't exercise into the late evening. Try to make sure you've got 2 or 3 hours between finishing your exercise and expecting to fall asleep. Caffeine hangs around in your body for several hours, so avoid everything containing caffeine from late afternoon onwards. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you must avoid alcohol altogether, although it would eventually be helpful and healthier if you did. I'm just going to say, don't drink more than you normally would in the hope it'll help you sleep. Sure, if you drink enough, it will help you get unconscious, but the sleep you get won't be so good and you're more likely to wake in the night. It's best not to go to bed with an empty stomach, so a little snack of something reasonably filling in the lead up to bedtime is fine, but keep it simple. Not heavy and definitely not sweetened. A slice of toast, a banana, something like that. The main thing is avoiding sugar. Sugar is a stimulant. When you want to sleep, you really don't need the energy boost it gives you. Bright light is a stimulant, and certain types of light are more stimulating. If the bathroom that you brush your teeth in just before bed is white tiled with bright lights, that is stimulating. I'm not saying you shouldn't brush your teeth, just get by with a little less lighting. Have you heard that the blue light that comes from screens like your tablet or smartphone keeps you awake? It's true. Your brain reads that kind of light as a wake-up type of light, not what you need. Try to avoid using screens in the lead up to bedtime. This might also help you avoid messaging that could have a stimulating emotional content. If you have the TV on in the lead up to bedtime, try to think of it during that time as a kind of a background noise, really. The normal thing when we switch on the TV is to look for something stimulating. Of course it is, like an exciting drama or an action movie or an emotional debate or, well, you get the idea. If you have the TV on, you should stick to something bland. Weird, I know, not what we normally do. Perhaps you'll switch it off for that last hour or so before bed. If you listen to music instead, that's fine, as long as it isn't too loud or rhythmic, because loud and rhythmic is, you've guessed it, stimulating. So if you aren't spending the last hour or two before bed watching TV or scrolling through social media, what are you going to do? Try not to do jobs like finishing the washing up or preparing sandwiches for the morning. If there are jobs that need doing, try to have them done well before bedtime, so you can just wind down for that last hour or two. Instead, you might find something a bit bland, maybe a little repetitive. Examples include ironing. Yes, I know that's a job, but it's okay if you're doing it as a bland, repetitive winding down activity, but not if it's a frantic last-minute rush to get shirts ironed in time for the morning. Another good activity is knitting. It's repetitive and requires some concentration, but not totally. And it isn't stimulating. I'm not saying everyone has to take up knitting, but perhaps you get the idea. Reading is fine, as long as the content isn't going to get your mind racing or distressed. Yes, there's more. A long, warm bath before bedtime helps get you to sleep. How does that sound? No, it doesn't suit everybody, but this isn't about washing between your toes. This is about relaxing in the bath. Don't make the water too hot because it'll stimulate your vascular system. Aim to spend at least 15 minutes in the bath. After the bath, as your body returns to its normal temperature, that's what helps to make you feel sleepy. In bed, you want your mind to get into the habit of thinking of bed as the place for sleeping. So once you're in bed, avoid doing other stuff like watching TV, reading, or using your phone. Instead, switch off the light and go to sleep. But of course, there is one exception to that rule. Sex between consenting adults who care deeply for each other is good for you psychologically and physically, and it might even help you sleep as well. But other than sex with your significant other, you need to get into the habit of knowing that bed is for sleeping, not entertainment. So now you're in bed. The light is off, and hopefully it's quiet, not too warm, not too cold, and your bed is reasonably comfortable. In a few minutes you'll fall asleep. Except maybe you won't. With nothing else to distract you, your thoughts are often drawn towards whatever is worrying you most. Thinking about anything that is a worry or a threat will tend to keep you awake. The more frustrated you get, the more the adrenaline flows, the more awake you are. Soon you're tossing and turning, checking the time and getting ever more frustrated that you can't sleep. Here's a suggestion. What you need is something to think about when your head hits the pillow that has enough detail to keep your mind on that subject, but isn't emotional, so it won't wake you up. Once you understand the principle, you can come up with your own solution. But here are a couple of examples that other people have found helpful. You could try and take a visual tour, a visualization of somewhere you knew very well in the past and which doesn't have unhappy memories associated with it. It could be something like your grandparents' home from when you were younger, or possibly the home you grew up in yourself. Visualize your tour, adding as much detail as possible. What was the colour of the front door? Or perhaps you entered through the back door. Was there a doorbell, knockers, or did you just walk straight in? What room were you in then? What was the floor covering? What could you see out of the window? And if there was a shelf, what was on the shelf? And so on. Move slowly from one room to another in your mind, only leaving the first room when you've managed to extract every detail you can from your memory. Hopefully you'll be asleep before you reach the kitchen. Remember, the trick is that there has to be a lot of detail, but not detail that you can very easily remember. You need to have to concentrate a bit. Another example is to try and remember the alphabetical register from when you were at school, if the register was read out each morning. How much of the register can you remember? Again, this works if it isn't easy and if there aren't unhappy memories associated with it. Decide beforehand what memory you'll visit if you need a distraction. Don't wait till you're lying in bed unable to sleep. If you wake during the night, you might be dozy enough that you can get back to sleep again quickly. But if not, it's probably better to get up for a while. Keep yourself warm and wait for sleepiness to return, rather than lying in bed worrying about not sleeping. Whilst you're up, keep to the guidance I've already given. Don't switch on bright lights and the TV and make yourself a cup of tea. Instead, do as little as possible. Preserve what sleepy feeling you have. Occupy yourself with something bland for half an hour or so until your eyes feel heavy again. And then it's probably worth returning to bed and trying again. If you manage to avoid being wide awake in the middle of the night, you've got a better chance that eventually you'll start to sleep through again, avoiding having a new sleeping habit where you wake every night. Our sleep habit is exactly that, a habit. Habits can be difficult to change. Once you've got an unhelpful sleeping habit due to some big disturbance in your life, it takes some persistence to change it back. Better to try and preserve what you can of your normal sleeping habit. Remember, I am not a virologist, a doctor, or a public health official. There is essential advice and information to help you protect your health and that of the people you care about. It's easily available from expert sources. We strongly recommend you visit those sources. Some links will accompany this video. I really hope you found something helpful or reassuring in this video. We welcome feedback. And if you found it helpful, we'd be really grateful if you'd share it. Thank you for watching.